All right, time for another episode of the Joshcast, which is feeling very reflective today. Well, then again, that's the whole point of a podcast, I suppose, is to reflect. And feeling a little down. I applied to a comedy festival, didn't get in, and I'm trying to be mature about it. And failing. And maybe that's okay, man. You know, I mean, maybe that's totally like I got to be an open wound, man. You know, like art is totally about having an open wound and just you know letting things affect you, man. You know, and letting it really affect you, and being, you know, wearing your heart on your sleeve, and then I make art out of it. I make art out of my pain. I make art out of it. That's what I do, man. Art is pain. It's pain and pastels. That's what art is. Totes. Well, I don't know. That seemed to insult everybody. But rejection's a thing. It's a thing. I struggle with it. You know, as with other negative things that happen, what I will go into my head and just start thinking about it and processing it over and over and over again, and generate a lot of emotional turmoil that leads to nothing productive. And I'll start to think, well, maybe they're right. Maybe they have a point. I wouldn't have accepted me. And then, you know, I'm thinking, well, what, you know, maybe there's something wrong with the tape I sent in. And I think there is. I still feel like I'm missing something on stage, that there's something I'm not, I want to say there's a lack of freedom. Like, either, you know, if the writing in the set is strong, it's strong, but the whole thing's a bit contained. Whereas if there's no writing and I'm just screwing around, I think I'm freer, but there's no, you know, I'm not saying anything, I'm just screwing around. And then in the middle of all of that, there's, you know, sort of this, well, what am I trying to say on stage? Which I think has shifted from where I was at, you know, even 2 or 3 years ago. So, well, what am I trying to say on stage? Well, what I'm going with lately is I'm trying to reveal more. I'm trying to share more. And I think ultimately the thing I'm trying to share is I am terrified. Which, I don't know if that's a risk. I think it's pretty obvious. But maybe it's not. What am I terrified of? Everything. Death, mostly. Death's a lot of it. Death is a good chunk of the pie. You know, that's I guess that's the advantage of being a vampire. You don't need to worry about death. But what about death, specifically? Well, that it's going to happen sooner than later. That it's going to be a long, slow, painful decline. Or happen suddenly and too soon. Like, this is the bit I wrote, but I want to live to be a ripe old age, and then sacrifice my life to save the human race from an alien invasion by flying a space shuttle into an attacking alien ship. I think that would be the ultimate way to go. Kind of, it has everything. Long life, well lived, aliens. I get to fly a shuttle, which I've always wanted to do. Get to go into space. I mean, that's really, it covers everything. And then it's over fast, and then I don't have to worry about the slow decaying misery stuff. But life is what happens when you're making other plans. And but I think the other thing I want to focus on, at least in the next month or so, just to focus on it, is the worrying. And the fact that I started noticing, even at my job, in the course of a conversation, I'm using this phrase. Well, here's what worries me. Da 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 da. Well, here's what worries me about this. Da 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 da. That it's become part of my vocabulary that I worry. And what I can't gauge is whether or not everybody worries and I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, or, I mean, are there people who don't worry? That's my question. I mean, is Matthew McConaughey really that laid back all the time, or is it a show? I'd give a good $5,000 just to be in the room with Matthew McConaughey when he's flipping out. Just to know that that is a thing. So I don't feel like I'm the only one. I think I need to be more vulnerable on stage as well. It always comes back to vulnerability with me. Whether it's acting or stand-up, I think the big issue is vulnerability. I think the other issue is that I want to try to do everything myself, and that's probably that's going against my journey, which is to reconnect with other people. Because I disconnected at some point. I just kind of I disconnected on a lot of levels. I remember this because my best friend moved away, and then other friends would come and go and move away, and I would try to be friends with people who didn't want to be friends with me. And then one day I said, I'm not even going to try anymore. If someone wants to be my friend, they can submit a request, but I'm not going to initiate. And here's the thing: was it lonely? Yes, but it got better, because then relationships just only seemed to happen naturally if they happened, and if they didn't happen, I wasn't, trying to be friends with someone who didn't want to be friends with me, and it was awkward, and they were annoyed, and I felt, not respected. So, it kind of sucks, but it's always worked for me, this notion. I think even with women, it's better when they come to me. It's better when, when they're walking into it with their eyes open. When they've consulted their experts and they're like, all right, I'm sure I want to do this, then it works out better. When I try to go to them, but have you tried, Josh? Have you really tried? Have you been on the dating apps? Have you gone out? Have you blah, 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 blah? No, I haven't. Not really. I have not tried. And I don't want to. It doesn't look pleasant. It wasn't pleasant when I was doing it. I mean, as hokey as this sounds, like I read this book, The Alchemist, and the thing that struck me about it is that, or at least what I got from it is you got follow your dreams and everything else will kind of take care of itself. And that's been my philosophy on dating. I'm focusing on the stand-up, and the dating is it'll happen when it happens, if it happens. And that's really that's been my plan. And I don't know, most people would disagree with it. And they would say, you gotta get out there. You gotta put yourself out there. And I would say, well, you don't seem that happy either. And you have put yourself out there. You've put yourself out there and you're just as miserable as I am, only on top of it, you have more miles on your car from going on all these dates. So why don't you slow it up? I don't know who I'm getting upset at. There's no one in the car. I'm getting upset at people who've said things to me in the past. So I'm getting upset at nothing. No one in my current life is telling me to go out there. So that's fun. Isn't that fun? Isn't that nice? I also feel like I'm caught kind of in the trying energy. Like I'm trying to figure it out, trying to write, trying to be funny, as opposed to letting go and being in the letting it flow. Let it go, let it go. I wonder if they're going to really be able to top that, because they're doing a Frozen sequel, which it seems like musical sequel. Do musical sequels ever work? I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of a sequel that was a musical that was ever as good as the first one. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will be the first to do this. But I think when I think of the Disney movies and they do the sequels are always like the direct-to-video, not so good sequels. Also, they want to do a sequel to Aladdin, which I don't know how they're going to do. Maybe another tale of one of the... Well, they have 1001 Arabian Nights. They got 1,000 more to go, I guess. That might be fun. Wouldn't that be fun, America? Well, that just went off on a tangent. This whole thing has been a tangent. But what am I trying to get to? Vulnerability. What does vulnerability mean? Well, it means being honest. But I think it also means talking about the stuff that I don't normally want to talk about in front of a room full of people. So it means not being the hero in the situation. It means talking about, the stuff that embarrasses me. That's a good question. What embarrasses me? Well, the fact that I never wash my clothes. That's embarrassing. I mean, I shower every day. Don't get me wrong. I don't know if that really helps my case here. But I just wear clothes till they wear out, then I throw them away, and then I buy new clothes. I just don't like going to the laundromat. That's a dumb excuse. I don't think it will matter. The women weren't really, coming after me when I was washing every week. That's embarrassing right there. I can feel the embarrassment. I can feel 9 generations from my past going, oh God, this is where we're ending up. Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe I'm not. The other thing I got to be careful of is that there are times where I think to myself, yeah, I'm in a good place right now. And I'm beginning to wonder if that's just denial. I'm wondering if I've been depressed the whole time. Kind of like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. She was dreaming the whole time. I've just been depressed the whole time. And any time where I thought I wasn't depressed was just either I was eating sugar or I was in a delusion of some kind. But now, I don't know. Now I feel like I'm trying to be vulnerable for the sake of being vulnerable. What does that even mean? It means that I'm trying to be vulnerable for the ulterior motive. That if I'm suddenly vulnerable, I'll get a surge in podcast listeners because they're looking for vulnerability. And that will be what gets me to be big. So now I'm beating myself up for trying to be vulnerable for an ulterior motive instead of being vulnerable for the sake of being vulnerable without wanting something. Because it seems like all the people, the moment where it really breaks for them is they're being their authentic selves and they are not caring about the result. So this is me going, I am trying to fake out the universe into not caring about the result, while still caring deeply about the result. That is what is happening. So at the end of the day, it seems like all I can do is just accept where I am, accept the fact that I still care about the result. Start there. Because I read something, if you want something to change, if you want a situation to change or, a circumstance, which is another way of saying situation. I don't know why I needed to say situation or circumstance. That's just me. Is that me just trying to prove to you I have a good vocabulary? That probably is. So we can add insecurity to the list of problems. But if you want a circumstance to change, you need to accept it for what it is. Just accept it. And as soon as you accept it, I think you become one with it. And then it shifts by itself without me trying to make it shift. So, here and now, I am accepting the fact that I want to make it and that I am attached to the results of my actions with this podcast. I am accepting it. I am breathing it in and I am accepting it. I am accepting. I don't accept it. I don't accept it. I'm mad at myself for being in this place. I can't handle acceptance. So I'm accepting that I can't accept that I want fame and fortune from stand-up. That's where we're at with this. That is where we're at.